Alright guys, what's going on? So in this video I wanted to compare my Ryzen 5900X up against my Ryzen 7800X 3D, and we're going to use my RTX 4090 to do this. We're going to be checking out 4K with some of the latest games, and the reason for this is a couple of reasons actually. One of them is that I've got a few questions from some viewers asking if they should upgrade to the 7800X 3D and that they play at 4K. So essentially this video is to see how big is the difference between these two CPUs at 4K with some of the latest settings using the fastest GPU. Well, let's check it out. We're going to start with Alan Wake.
Scene.
Okay, so we're going to begin by showing our settings here, and we're going to make two runs with Alan Wake, two small runs. One's going to be 4K rasterization focused, which is what this is, and then we're also going to take a look at path tracing and see if there's any differences there. Now, as you can see here, the performance is identical because we are GPU bound in this very demanding game at 4K. Now, what makes this comparison also a bit interesting is that last week I compared my 7900X TX with my 4090. Now, for those of you that might not know, I have two PCs. I have a 7900X TX with a 5900X PC and 4090 with a 7800X 3D PC. So when I do compare them, sometimes I use those PCs to compare the games. Now, the games that I do compare are the latest, most demanding games normally, and I make sure that the 5900X is not the bottleneck for the 7900X TX. That is constantly the GPU-bound comparison, obviously, because that is how you compare GPUs usually. But every now and then I will get some people who are kind of confused, or, maybe they've seen a review somewhere, or, hardware unbox, for example, benchmarking CPUs at 1080p with the 4090, which makes sense why he does that, because he wants to test the gaming capabilities of a CPU. But just because a CPU is 30 or 40% faster than another does not mean that you're going to get that out of it. A lot's going to depend on the resolution you play, the type of graphics card you have, how demanding the game is. There's a lot of things that matter. And as you can see here, there was no difference. Now here we're going to check out path tracing. So let's go into the settings and make sure that path tracing is enabled. And we're also going to use DLSS quality. So we're essentially running the game at 1440p with path tracing enabled. And you will see here in a second that the performance is going to be the same. Yeah. So if all you play is the latest games at 4K, now there are some games where there is a difference, right? But you can usually determine that by looking at the metrics. But in this game, there is no difference. So I could have used, I bet you even if you use the 5600X, there would not be a difference. Because the Ryzen 5000s are not, there's not a big difference in gaming performance between 5600X, 5800X, 5900X, unless you jump on the 5800X 3D. But mainly I kind of make these videos because it's something that I'm enthusiastic about, but I also kind of want people to kind of learn more about reading these metrics because they tell you everything, right? Like a lot of people will say, oh, the 7800X 3D is 40% faster than the 5900X. The 7900X TX would be much faster if you use the 7800X 3D, and that is not the case, because if you are GPU limited, it does not matter how much faster of a CPU you use. You're already limited by the GPU, and that is that's how you want to compare GPUs, essentially, right? You don't want your system or your CPU to be the limit. So that's kind of why I wanted to make this video, which actually, funny enough, actually, the 5900X side is about like a frame or two ahead, 1 frame faster if you look at the averages. So that's kind of interesting. It's within margin of error, of course, but it could also be maybe there's more background tasks running on my 7800X 3D PC. I also did a fresh Windows install on the 5900X PC not that long ago, but yeah. Anyway, next games we're going to take a look at is Starfield. So we're going to, again, it's all going to be 4K with all the settings maxed out. And as you guys can see here, there really isn't much of a difference. It's still, again, the same thing. Now, what's also interesting with this game as well, I think you're starting to see a pattern here, is that I made this comparison between the 7900X TX and 4090. That was 2 days ago. I think I made the video. And Yeah, there was a comment that was saying that, oh, but the X3D has V-Cache. You don't understand. Even though I showed in that video by turning FSR on that the 5900X could almost do double the FPS that the 7900XTX was capable of, but we were bound by the GPU. And as you can see here, even with the fastest GPU, the 5900X is still performing the same as the 7800X3D. Now, that doesn't mean that the 7800X3D is not faster. It is. Of course it is. But not in this case, it's not, because we're bound by the by the performance capabilities of our GPU. That's essentially what's happening. Now, there is some areas where the 7800X3D might kind of where it kind of pokes ahead a little bit when the 5900X hits the limit. Now, that I think that happens in Neon City, which we're going to take a look at in a second here, for a brief moment, right? But that wouldn't have happened with a 7900XTX, because we found out the 4090 was around 20 to 30% ahead of the 7900XTX consistently. So that basically in that video, the 7900XTX was never CPU bound by the 5900X. So yeah, guys, as you can see here in Starfield at 4K, even with the fastest GPU, there is no difference. So if you have a 5900X and you play at 4K, I think you're going to be fine. Of course, there's going to be some games where it will be a bottleneck, mainly if you play older games, or even like games that are like a year or two older, that are not as demanding. Yes, you're gonna get more performance out of a 7800X 3D, of course. But I still think the 5900X is a very good CPU that will deliver you high-end gaming at the very least 60 FPS. So, and then at that point you're going to be bound by your GPU, so you're not going to really see the benefits unless you're on like a 7900XT, XTX, 4080, 4090 tier of GPUs essentially. So yeah, you can see here that it was the 7800XTX became a little bit faster. But anyway, next game rather, it's going to be Lords of the Fallen 2023. So we're going to show our settings again. We are running at 4K, everything maxed out. And another interesting thing with this video as well, I made a comparison in the same area with the 7900XTX and 4090. And again, same thing. A couple people came to the comment section saying that it wasn't fair and the 7900XTX would have been faster. Well, here you have it. The 4090 was much faster than the 7900XTX actually. It was like 40%. And even the 4090 cannot break through the capabilities of the 5900X here. Look at that. They're both the same. 7800X 3D and 5900X. The same level of performance, right? It's exactly the same thing. If you look at the averages, it's 57. Look at the frame time graphic. It's exactly the same. Okay, so Forza Motorsport will be the last game that we take a look at, and we're maxing everything out. We're putting DLAA on as a form of anti-aliasing, full ray tracing and everything. So this game will be a little bit different, and that is that you will actually see a little bit of a difference where the 7800X 3D will be a little bit faster than the 5900X. Not the advertised 30%, but, maybe around 5% or so. And what's actually interesting, if you guys pay close attention, you can see ghosting behind the car, and that is from DLAA actually. DLA can result in some ghosting in some games, so that happens with white cars and red and yellow cars, I think. But that's besides the point. So yeah, you can see a little bit of a difference here, and you know, it's easy to tell CPU demanding games if you read the metrics, but this is one that is quite CPU demanding. I think it's because of all the calculations they're doing for the simulation, but the ray tracing also makes it a little bit more CPU demanding. Speaking of which, actually, the difference between ray tracing on and off in this game is not really that noticeable, so you can disable it and get a lot more performance, but that's up to you. But now another game that's very CPU demanding is EA Sports WRC. Actually, I have a video that'll be going live, might have gone live before this or maybe after this, but you will see that even the 6800 XT 3080 Ti are both bottlenecked by the 5900X in that game. It's very unusually CPU demanding. So yeah, there will be games like this where the 5900X might hold your 4090 back, but the 7900 XTX, it would still be fine with the 5900X in this game with ray tracing enabled, because I've done that test. But anyway, guys, you can leave comment section below if you have any comments for me or what you thought about this video. If you have any suggestions, please let me know what you think, and thanks for watching. Give it a like if you want to, if you think it's worth it, and subscribe if you want to. Thanks for watching. Have a good one. Bye.